This is the closest to outside they can get for the next 5 days. No going to work, no running out to get groceries. Police swarmed 9 public housing towers in Melbourne on Saturday evening, blocking driveways and doorways to prevent anyone from leaving. It isn't a crime scene, the state government says is to avoid an explosive coronavirus outbreak. There's 27 confirmed cases of the virus among the 3,000 residents of the estates.
The 9 towers that are being locked down will be locked down for at least 5 days, because that is deemed the appropriate period to test everybody, every single resident, other than those who've already tested positive, across those towers.
The authorities insist the lockdown isn't about punishment, but protection. Except some residents say they're being treated like prisoners. Aid groups have expressed concerns about vulnerable communities inside the units, some who have fled war or family violence. They are calling for less police officers and more social workers and translators.
I don't for a moment underestimate how challenging, how traumatic in some respects that will be for those 3,000 residents.
The state government has offered a 2-week rent freeze and welfare payments to support those in the lockdown. But residents say the seriousness of the measures are unfair, with many highlighting how other people in locked-down suburbs are still allowed to leave their houses for work or grocery shopping. Their tenants feel powerless. They will spend the next 5 days waiting for a knock at the door that brings food supplies or a COVID-19 test, and won't be allowed out until everyone has been tested.
They're in a hurry. The quarantine officially started at noon, but residents got an extra few hours to return to their homes. From now on, no one is allowed to travel to or leave the city of Lleida and its surrounding communities in the west except to go to work. The measures have been met with understanding from residents. I hope that the lockdown is effective and the outbreak is contained so that we can quickly return to normal life. If the outbreak is here, then it's better to lock down only one area rather than the whole region. Instead of a complete lockdown where people are confined to their homes, authorities are focusing on travel restrictions and preparing hospitals in the affected region for the surge in COVID-19 cases. We believe that we have to take specific measures in Lleida to protect the most vulnerable people, to reinforce protection in our health centers and in the hospital itself. Most of the recent infections were reportedly recorded in retirement homes, a residential area, and on farms. In April, Lleida issued an urgent call for workers for its surrounding farmland. But migrants eager to make money in times of crisis exceeded seasonal demand. The result? A large amount of poor, unemployed workers sleeping on the streets, in cramped apartments, or in makeshift government shelters. The risk of infection among them is high. Health authorities are also afraid of them spreading the virus when they move to a different area to look for work. That's why from Tuesday, workers entering or leaving the zone will have to present a certificate from their employer.
The first visit to the pub in more than 3 months. The reopening is taking place amid strict measures, which even royalty have to observe. Prince William got his first drink in a day early. Ordinary citizens had to wait till Saturday morning for the pubs to open in England and Northern Ireland. The British government fears there could be a mad rush to the drinking establishments. The health minister warned his compatriots not to mess things up, saying those who get carried away could be jailed. Prime Minister Boris Johnson also called on Britons to act responsibly.
All these businesses and their workers have put in a heroic effort to prepare their venues for this reopening, to work out a way to trade that keeps their customers safe. But the success of these businesses, the livelihoods of those who rely on them, and ultimately the economic health of the whole country is dependent on every single one of us acting responsibly.
Restrictions have been eased for other businesses as well, including hairdressers, museums, cinemas, and restaurants. Critics say the reopening comes too soon. Currently, there are around 500 new infections a day, but the numbers could soon spike again, like they did during an outbreak in Leicester earlier this week. The city of 300,000 residents in the heart of England is still under a local lockdown, and the government has warned that it will not hesitate to order the closure of businesses again if there is a fresh coronavirus outbreak.
Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Charlotte Potts, who is standing by outside one of those pubs in London. Charlotte, the UK is the European country worst hit by the pandemic. From where you stand, does it seem like Brits are really ready to go to the pub again?
Oh, yes, they are. I actually witnessed that myself today. I'm in a neighborhood in South London, and all the pubs and restaurants are really, really full here, especially younger folks. We're very excited to return to the pubs. They've now waited over 3 months, and this pub that you see behind me, for example, is taking the temperature of its guests and clients when they come in to get a beer. But that seems to be about all the measures they are actually taking. There is zero social distancing inside or outside the pubs. The streets are crowded. People are talking to each other in different group settings. I mean, the British really love their pubs and they are excited to be back on the streets. But again, very little social distancing going on here. And that is why scientists also warn that there could be a second wave of infections and that it was way too early to open the pubs here again. As you mentioned, restaurants and hairdressers also open today. But for example, theaters and gyms are remaining closed at the moment. And people are asking, why can pubs open that are such a huge horde of infection when theaters have to remain closed at this point?
Well, let's talk about that and the bigger picture in general. What do people make of their government's handling of the coronavirus crisis?
Well, at the moment, there are over 100 people each day still dying from the virus, and the pandemic has hit the UK extremely hard. And a lot of people blame that on the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's handling of the crisis, on the government's crisis management. Boris Johnson's approval ratings are now way down. Brits are saying that he locked down the country too late, and now they are worried that the track and trace system, which should keep this pandemic, the virus, in check, is not yet in place. But indeed, everything is opening up. So very big worries here in the UK of a second wave of infections at the moment.
All right, Charlotte Potts in London, thank you so much.